start recording. How nice that it's sunny again today. Yesterday it went grey and my mood went mup. Lucy's in Portugal, so she doesn't have that problem.
It has been a bit grey.
Oh,
It's
good.
lovely today. It's lovely, but look
Oh,
look at my hilarious little notebook that I've just got.
oh, that's very old school, Lucy. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Old school to go with your old soul.
That's all I could get.
Whatever work. Oh, we've got another one. Lovely RuPaul. Um, she'll be joining. So, everybody doing okay? Everybody loving the sunshine? Everybody pleased to be here? I'm so pleased you could make it. Thank you so much. Hey, RuPaul, good to be with you. I know you're in a meeting room somewhere, aren't you? So I'm,
Yeah, sorry, I haven't got my video on because it's a bit I'm in a bit of a weird place.
yeah, I totally hear you. So and no, and there's never any. Um, if you don't want to put your camera on, if you want to turn your camera off, you're so welcome to. I know what us highly sensitive types are like. So it's always an option, and you don't have to contribute, or you can contribute, or however you feel comfortable. So I did hit record, didn't I? Did everyone hear that? Yeah. So I gave you a bit of an overview in my email, but I thought I would just recap what my intentions are for this session today. So I'm going to quickly read. Hi, Jules. I'm going to quickly recap um, the last session we did together and do a quick overview of kind of the thinking behind it and the things we covered, just so as A, it's fresh in your mind, but also B, because there are some people who are either on this call or who will be receiving this call later on, who want the recording of it, who didn't manage to watch last time's yet. So, are
I can't make the sound.
you all right, Jules? Is that you? Sorry, I thought I heard some.
Yeah,
I
okay.
heard Jules' dulcet tones. Um, so we'll do that quickly, and then we'll do some journaling together, and then there's a time for a bit of a sharing of insights, and then I would really love your feedback on how you may feel best served if I created something specifically for highly sensitive women or highly sensitive mums, because more and more when I'm working with mums, we start out looking at their child and they've got an inkling maybe that they might be highly sensitive, but the further the sessions go on, they go, I'm definitely highly sensitive and I don't really know what that means for me. And I don't really know how to unpick that. And I would really love some support. So that would be super helpful. So, in terms of the recap from last time, we were really looking at stories we were told about ourselves as children, weren't we? We were looking at those anecdotes that our parents like to regale. And some of them are funny and cute and hilarious, and some are a little bit shaming. And actually, when it comes down to it, lots of those stories actually really closely relate to our high sensitivity. They were often examples of us trying to meet our highly sensitive needs with the limited understanding that we had, or just in a way that wasn't deemed socially appropriate in some way. So we went back to the stories and picked out some of the key stories that were kind of fed to us as children about ourselves, or situations. I remember Beth in the last session, and I'm sure she won't mind me resharing, was talking about a situation with her family dog where she'd wanted a particular dog and she'd been very upset about the thought of getting this other dog that her siblings had wanted, and then she'd really blamed herself for being so pedantic about the dog that she really wanted. And she worked out on the call that it was actually because the other dog had really bristly, not smooth fur, and that felt really uncomfortable to her sensory system. Um, so we were looking at those with new awareness. We went through the kind of four foundational elements of being highly sensitive, which are, I'll give you a quick recap. Over overstimulation, sensing subtleties, deep empathy, and deep processing. those were kind of coined and noted by Elaine Aron, who was the key researcher in the 80s and 90s about high sensitivity. She was the first person to really look into it. We've got lots of researchers since, but she was kind of the first person. And then with that awareness of those four elements, we were then re-looking at those stories and reframing them. We were thinking about, oh, with this lens of, am I highly sensitive? And if that was trying to meet a need in some way, how could I reframe that in terms of overstimulation, sensing subtleties, deep empathy, or deep processing? And also, which of those still ring true today? Which of those things, and also those stories, which of those have we carried into our present? Which of those are we still either holding on to, or are we still aware of that, yes, I was on a call with a mum this morning and she was saying, I just need so much more sleep than I think the normal average person needs. And I've kind of beat myself up about it or judged myself for it in the past. And actually, now that I'm realizing I'm highly sensitive, it makes sense and I can give myself permission to have that sleep without feeling guilt around it. So that's kind of where we were. Has anybody got anything they want to add or any questions on that just before we go into journaling? Everybody okay with that? Cool. So the journaling is going to be around what's come up since, or if you haven't managed to have a look at that first session yet, just in terms of your understanding now that you probably are highly sensitive or you think you are highly sensitive. How has that started to shift things for you? What observations have you started to make about yourself in line with this new narrative of, my system is more sensitive than other people's? What was your biggest takeaway from the last session? Frustrations and desires around being highly sensitive. We'll go into more of those when we journal. But I wondered if you would mind sharing in the chat, just so I've got an idea of the conversation later on. What support would you love to gain from today's session or future sessions? I wonder if you had an idea of what would be really nice to hear or to take away from today's session, or if we do more sessions on this, future sessions. Could you write that in the chat for me if you've got an idea? And if you haven't, if your brain's not working because it's Friday, then please don't worry. But I'd love to know. I'll just give you a minute. Cool. Lucy says the reframing was really useful in the last session. I'm really pleased, love. I'm really pleased. Julia, how not to go into my own sensitivity child self while I'm dealing with a tricky situation with my highly sensitive child. Oh my goodness, that is brilliant, Julia. Do you know what I'm going to do? Because I don't know how you download these. I'm going to take a picture of them on my phone so I remember them. Because I am not the most tech savvy. I'm sure there is a way. Lucy, I shifted running away to running to. Currently, I'm running to Portugal. Oh my gosh, I love that. And how empowering, Lucy. Jules, I need like an emergency toolkit sheet video for when I get overwhelmed and crash because my high sensitivity overwhelms don't occur in line with these calls. Yeah, oh my God, Jules. Yes, wouldn't that be nice if we could just arrange them around when we're going to be supported by somebody? And that's been Hearted Sounds Later. How to stop soaking up other people's feelings. Yeah, and how to let go of those feelings if I still do. Yeah, Sam, is that particularly in regards to your own children and probably everyone, but particularly in regards to your own children? Yeah, that's a really good one. Because I was thinking I did that boundaries around empathy cheat sheet last time, but that was really at looking at other adults. But that I think it's a whole different thing when you're thinking about absorbing your children's feelings. That's really hard. RuPaul, balancing my sensitivity with my child's high sensitivity feels like a constant juggle. That sounds very similar to similar and different to Sam's actually. But yes, how to meet your own needs when you're constantly having to meet their needs and trying to meet their needs. And sometimes those needs are pulling in different directions. And what on earth do you do? Oh, Julie, if you click the three dots at the top of the chat, you can save the whole chat. You're amazing. Well done. I should have asked. I should have known someone on here would be really clever. Cool. Not that the others of you aren't clever, just that someone would be clever technologically. Thank you for sharing those. That's really helpful. And I could see lots of you for every single one that I read out, kind of nodding along, going, yes, I'd like that too. Yes, I'd like that too. So I can't promise that we will cover all of that today, but that's really helpful information for future sessions too. So thank you so much. So are we all feeling comfortably set up for journaling? There are 4 questions today, and I'm going to give you a good 4 or 5 minutes for each one. We're gonna journal for a little bit longer today because I really want to, even if it feels uncomfortable, notice the discomfort and see if you can still keep writing, even if it's, I'm not sure what to write, I'm not sure what to write, just whatever pops into your head. And with these, Rupal, I don't know that we've journaled before, but it's stream of consciousness journaling. So it's basically, I will set you a question, and whatever comes into your mind, you are writing down. And if it takes you off on a complete tangent and you think that's got nothing to do with the question, stick with it because it's your subconscious processing what it really wants to process just now, and it will be important for some reason. So you might feel like you're going off on a tangent, or you might feel like, oh, I've got nothing in my mind, but just the important thing is to keep your pen or pencil writing as much as possible. Try not to think too hard, just see what comes up for you. And then at the end, once we've done each prompt, I'll invite you to go back to what you've written and underline or box out anything that stood out or anything that repeats itself. So, are you sitting comfortably? Have you got a cup of tea, a nice pen, a glass of water, a comfy cushion, whatever you need, because you are going to be sitting for the next 20 minutes or so, just writing. Feel free to get up, wiggle around. There is no need to sit down or stay still. I know that sometimes as highly sensitive types like the freedom to be able to move around. You are so welcome to do that. I will take no offense. You can have your camera on or off. Whatever you want to do is fine. So if you are ready, the first question is, what new observations have I had about myself, my needs, and the way I respond to life since either the last session or since I started noticing my own sensitivity more? So that's quite wordy. What new observations have I had about myself, my needs, and the way I respond to life since the last session or since I started noticing my own sensitivity more? Has everyone got that, or do you need me to read it out one more time? One more time. What new observations have I had about myself, my needs, and the way I respond to life since the last session or since I started to own my own sensitivity more? And I'm going to give you 5 minutes for that one. And I'm starting that now. You've got 1 minute left. Okay, just finishing up the idea or the sentence that you're on. There's no rush. Just finishing that off. And when you have, looking back through what you've written and either underlining, circling, boxing out, whatever feels best for you, any ideas that felt important or words that felt important or ideas or words that repeated themselves. Just taking a moment to go back through. Ready, if you could just give me a thumbs up and then I'll know when everyone's ready to move on to the next one. Thank you. Thanks, RuPaul. Okay, is that everybody? Jules, do you need another minute? You're okay. Okay, cool. So question number 2 is, what micro or macro shifts have I started to make, even just psychologically, to support my sensitivity with more compassion? What micro, in brackets, or macro shifts have I started to make, even just psychologically, to support my sensitivity with more compassion? Does anyone need that read one more time? Yeah. I'll read it slowly this time. What micro, or in brackets, or macro shifts have I started to make, even just psychologically, to support my sensitivity with more compassion? And I'm going to give you 4 minutes for that one, starting now. 1 minute left to go. Okay, finishing the idea or sentence that you're on and going back and underlining or boxing out key insights or anything that's repeating. And if you can just pop your thumbs up when you're ready to move on, that'd be really helpful. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, RuPaul. Thanks, Sam. Jules, you okay? Lucy, you okay? Cool. Okay. Question number 4. This is a shorter question. Less writing. Okay. Where am I feeling frustrated, stuck, confused, or alone when it comes to my sensitivity? Where am I feeling frustrated, stuck, confused, or alone when it comes to my sensitivity? I'll do that one more time slowly. Where am I feeling frustrated, stuck, confused, or alone when it comes to my sensitivity? And that one I'm going to do 4 minutes again, starting now. 1 minute left. Okay, finishing up the sentence that you're on and just going back through it for a minute or so. And again, if you can just give me a wave or a thumbs up when you are ready to go on to the final question. Thank you. Cool. Okay. The final question is, if I'm being really honest with myself, I have a deep desire to something, so dot, 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 in line with my sensitivity because dot, dot, dot. Okay. If I'm being really honest with myself, I have a deep desire to dot, 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 in line with my sensitivity because dot, dot, dot. Do that one more time. If I'm being really honest with myself, I have a deep desire to dot, 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 in line with my sensitivity because dot, dot, dot. And if it's not clear, you're filling in the blanks this time. And I will give you 3 minutes for that one, starting now. And I shall do it myself too. You might have more than one desire, I'm finding, as I'm journaling, so you can always do it 2 or 3 times, or as many as you like. Okay, just finishing up where you're at and going back through and doing that underlining or boxing out. And then when you're ready, it's time to share if you feel called to share today, or just listen if that feels better for your system, better for you today. Would anybody like to start us off? Did anyone have any revelations or insights or ideas that came to them? Lucy Lou.
One of the things that I wrote, I would have to look at the book to see which question, but was like struggle in like a group scenario at a time, and that how that mainstream school obviously was quite challenging because of that.
Mm.
And I knew that school wasn't great for me, you know, I'm 45, but it was like making the connection.
Yeah. Looking back retrospectively, going, it really wasn't the right setting for me, and it's okay that it wasn't the right setting for me, because that is also true for lots of other people.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's also, I think, then that what came later was like reconciling that with there's like this is a group scenario, but there are some like how it like I can be in groups. It's not like I have to be on my own all the time, but it's like that. And that came up somewhere else, like the happy medium.
Mm. So some groups where it's okay and sometimes even nourishing to be in a group situation, but there are some groups that it definitely is not nourishing to be in.
Yeah, and I think it's about, I suppose it's around if my needs are met, and if it's a sort of safe space and all that other jazz.
Yeah, if you feel safe for and whatever safety is in that situation, if the people feel safe around you, I really feel you. And that is one of the things that I was writing was my desire is to be in community with other sensitive women more consistently, because that feels so nourishing to me when I know that the other people, systems and brains work in a similar way to mine. My whole body just goes, oh, lovely. Thank you, Lucy.
Can I like respond to that?
Yes.
So, one of the things that I've noticed in the last few years is that, like, my belief is that everyone's on a spectrum or another. So, in my brain, sometimes when I spend time with people, I'm like, oh, they're like more ADHD, they're more autistic, they're more ADHD, just because it helps me understand them and understand me.
Mm.
And although I have a desire to be with others that are like me, sometimes what I find with some of my other ADHD friends is that it's quite overwhelming
Mm.
because, and I acknowledge it about myself, that some ADHDers are a lot.
Mm. Yeah.
And it, you know, because then there's like, you're almost like, and I know that people will have thought this about me, like, where's the off button?
Yeah, like the little Energizer bunny. I feel you. Yeah, sometimes being with people who are too similar to us can be a bit jarring and can be a lot for us. I hear that. Thank you, my lovely. Anyone else feeling called to share anything?
Can I share something that came up with for me?
Please.
Emmy has been saying that she's stupid and being really hard on herself. And I keep saying you have to be kind to yourself and, be patient. And I'm saying all these things. And then John said to me, actually, you're very similar. And it's because I think about myself a lot that I'm stupid. And yeah, I don't say it out loud, but she must sense that. And I'm modeling the wrong thing to her.
Yeah,
And because she's so sensitive, she picks up on that.
because she's reading the subtext all the
Yeah.
time, and she can feel when there's an incongruence in what you're saying and what you're feeling internally
Mm.
because of her sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And so, what I know to be true is the more that you understand and have compassion for yourself, you know this too, the more that you understand and have compassion for yourself, the less frustrated with yourself you are.
Mm.
I was
It's just
actually,
interesting that I kept saying to her, be kind to yourself, have compassion, and then realizing I'm not doing that to myself.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really big realization, Julia, and I'm
Mm.
wondering how that's landed, because even what I'm also aware of is even within that there's a sense of beating yourself up. I'm not
Mm.
doing that. I'm not modeling that.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm. On a practical level, if you're looking for a quick practical thing, and obviously there's deeper work to be done around that potentially, just starting off with when you notice that inner critic coming up, noticing it is the first step,
Mm.
and just allowing it to be there because it's trying to protect you from something. It will have
Mm.
served a purpose at one point in your life. It will have, made you very aware of how you're behaving. So you stop doing it so that you're safe around a certain group of people or other people. So noticing when it comes up, and to the best of your ability, treating it with less non-judgment, or just noticing that it's there. But then with whatever the story is that it's beating you up about or berating you about, saying to yourself, of course, and seeing if you can get to a more compassionate perspective from that. So, for example, I don't know, if you're beating yourself up because you feel like you can't cope as well as other mums in the same position as you, or you're not coping as well as someone else, which is a really common thing with highly sensitive people. I don't cope as well as other people. Why don't I cope as well as other people? Everyone else can do this, this, this.
Mm.
Saying to yourself, of course, and then seeing what comes up. So, for you, it might be, I parent solo a lot of the time. I am a really sensitive person and I pick up on subtleties and I process things really deeply. Therefore, I need a lot more rest time and a lot more decompression time.
Mm.
I have a small child and a dog and a job and a house and a husband, and all of that's a lot for anybody.
Mm.
So the of course kind of leads to you reframing it slightly. So I don't know how that feels as a practical takeaway that you could play with. And that might not work for you, but
It's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing. I think that one probably spoke to everybody on the call. Yeah. Anyone else sharing from their journaling today?
I'm happy to share.
Oh, Kyrie, yes, please. I'd love you to share.
Yeah, so I think I was thinking about, I previously thought that my sort of my processing, my deep processing, my kind of taking time on a lot of reflection, it sort of meant that I was more action repressed, I think, than others. I kind of sometimes look at others and wonder, how do they get so much done in the day? And maybe I don't get as much done. But I've started to kind of look at really the value of my deep processing and really kind of look at it in a different way. And sort of really see that a lot of my deep processing will sort of bring up difficult, prompt action in a different way. So it might be that I've kind of noticed a pattern of behavior or something in a family member, and it kind of prompts a difficult but important conversation. Or it might be I've brought something to the surface that might have gone unnoticed, I think, by perhaps others. So just trying to see that value in the time, the reams of time that I spend thinking.
Yeah. Oh, I want to bottle that because that I think that speaks to all of us. I know, having had conversations with some of you, that speaks to some of you particularly. But the gifts of that deep processing and that sense of, why can't I get as much done in the day as someone else? But actually, you are bringing something else to the table that other people, because they're busy, 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 busy bees, doing, 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 they're not bringing that because they haven't had they haven't, they're not built to process things in the same way that you are. They don't sense the subtleties. They don't notice those little idiosyncrasies, and they don't have the um, drive or the ability to process things in the way that you do from lots of different angles and come to the conclusions to move forward. So although you might feel like you're taking less action, I wonder if the action that you're taking is actually more meaningful in some ways, because you've really sat with it and processed it and thought about it. Thank you for that share. Lucy saying she really relates, and thank you for sharing, and how her deep processing means she changes her mind when she's dwelled on something for a while. Oh, yes. And also giving ourselves permission to change our minds or change directions because we've had a realization. Sometimes we feel like we must stick to what we've said we're going to do. And with the deep processing, there does often come this, oh no, I've had a different realization and that isn't going to work, or I want to do this instead. So thank you for sharing that too. Thank you, ladies. Really supportive. I'm just looking to see if there was anything that I wanted to share. Or if anybody else wants to share, please do. And if not, I will go on to asking you some questions about how you might like to be supported going forward. Yeah, I think one of my key ones relates to something that Sam said at the beginning, but also Lucy, is being around other people and not going into their experience, having those energetic boundaries with people. Although I'm very good at setting boundaries in terms of how much time I might spend with somebody and being boundaried around that, or after the situation, kind of letting go of anything that I feel like isn't mine, that's kind of stuck in my system. When I'm in a situation, particularly with a group of people, I think this is really common with highly sensitive people, is being pulled out of my own body and my own desires and my own needs straight into everybody else's. That's something that I am actively working on, and I'm working with a somatic experiencing practitioner at the moment, actually, and that's one of the things that we're working on. But I know that's really true for lots of you, is that you go into a room and feel everybody else's feelings and notice the subtleties of what's going on. And that can be really overwhelming. So how do we stay in our own bodies? Cool. Does anybody want to share anything else before I ask you some specific questions? No? Cool. Okay. So I guess I'm really aware, and I'm ongoing becoming more aware, that when I'm working with parents, from a parenting perspective, many of them are saying, I feel like I'm highly sensitive and I don't really know where to go with that, what to do with that. I feel like I would like some support. I don't really know what I mean by that. I don't really know what that looks like. And I'm kind of on this journey. I want to create something. I feel like it's a group thing. I feel like we get a lot from being in a group and sharing and understanding that other sensitive people are having really similar experiences to us. And also those light bulb moments when it's not even something you've consciously become aware of in yourself yet, and somebody else says something and you go, oh, that's me too, and I've never thought of it before. So I feel like something group wise would be helpful, but tell me if that doesn't feel true for you. And I'm just kind of interested to hear, and this isn't by any stretch of the imagination binding you to joining something. I'm just kind of at the very beginnings of starting to work out, what could I offer? How could I continue to support the mums that I'm supporting parenting wise, or women externally as well? how can I continue to support those women and help them with their sensitivity? What does that look like? You know, is it a group or is it individual, or is it a mixture of both? How frequently, because we're sensitive, so we don't want something, you know, that's every week, presumably, but maybe that's not true for some people. We maybe want something that's once a term or once a half term or once a month, and does it feel better to meet up on Zoom, or would it be nice to have like an away day somewhere where we meet up all together? Would it be nice to have kind of, I don't know, a WhatsApp group or one of those other apps, which I'm not very au fait with yet, but one of those other apps where there's kind of group support and we can check in with each other, and there's, you know, people are sharing things and there's ideas, and we maybe you know, maybe I set a couple of invitations a week for you to think about. What would feel good? Has anybody got any ideas of what they're looking for or what would feel good to them? That would be really helpful. And that's quite a tricky question maybe to answer in the moment. Rupal.
Hiya.
Hiya.
I think for me, and I think I've said this to you, and I kind of put it in the chat. I think it's, and someone else said this. It's almost your sensitivities or the things that occur don't always occur in time with particular calls or whatever. So as much as weirdly, I wrote one of the things of my things that I want to disengage with the pressures of constantly being on call with phones. But weirdly, for stuff like this, like having a place like a WhatsApp place for me personally, where you can kind of have ad hoc support from each other. Because one of the things that I find hard, which I think someone else mentioned, was just balancing my sensitivity around my child's sensitivity.
Yeah.
And that can occur, you know, at unpredictable times when those two things chime. And it feels like you're constantly making micro decisions every day, every week. And just having a place where you could share that in an ad hoc way and get some support on a difficult day would, I think I would really benefit, because one of the things that I find challenging is I think parenting in today's day and age feels a different 24/7 when it's coupled with WhatsApp groups for school and parties, and it feels it just feels full on in a way that I think was different a couple of generations ago. You know, there's classes and clubs, and it just so your sensitivity often has to be bottled somewhere. That's just my 2 pence worth.
That's really helpful, thank you. So it sounds like some kind of group where there is kind of peer support for each other if needed, and it might even just be to kind of blurt out things and share, and then if anyone can come back to you and support, or just heart, or just to be heard and help. And also, as Jules I think said in the chat earlier, maybe a bank of resources that is easy to tap into, that is very easily accessible, so that you're not having to look back through your notes or book a call, or there's something that's there in the moment when you need it.
Sounds good.
I'm
finding these journaling prompts really helpful, because often I'm giving myself the answer through journaling.
Yeah, you do know. Perfect.
But I need a prompt.
So journaling prompts. And do you like, Julia, doing that in a group setting, or would it feel just as nourishing or even more nourishing to just be sent some journal prompts and to be able to do them in your own time?
I think both are valuable.
Both. Thank you. Does anyone
I also think both. I think I probably wouldn't have time to do it on my own. I wouldn't make the time to do it on my own, because the main part of being highly sensitive for me is the sensitivity is flowing around, and I'm absorbing all this stuff and I'm feeling all these things, but I'm not actually stopping to allow myself to feel them and to process them. So I'll charge on regardless until I crash. And then when I crash, I'm in an emergency situation. So I need the video, some kind of what's the word? Resource that when I'm in that situation, I can look up, or halfway through, if I notice I'm going towards that situation, I can look at a resource and go, oh, I can avoid crashing out completely if I do this now. So for me, it's a blend of a WhatsApp group, although I would probably be less likely to, I don't know, I might be likely to share in that, but journal prompts and resources that I can, if I had a WhatsApp group and I knew the resources were accessible, I could quickly go and get them. The problem is when you're in that situation, if you don't have resources, you don't know where to look because I numb out when I overwhelm, and I overwhelm so dramatically that I numb out significantly. So just being able to go, oh, I know I can look that up, that will help me, would be really useful.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, because the thing for me, and I didn't share it, but the thing that came up with the micro and macro shift is the only thing I do differently is avoid Superdrug, because I physically noticed it was, and emotionally it was too much. Superdrug is like a massive emotional trigger for me. But nothing else has shifted because I'm too busy to make the shift. And then I'm not processing either. So there are no other shifts because I almost not need to be held accountable, but I need to remind myself that I am highly sensitive more often, and having a resource or being part of a WhatsApp group will remind me. If you hadn't messaged to say about the call today this morning, I wouldn't have remembered because I'm too busy and I'm overwhelmed at the moment.
Yeah.
You know.
So having some structure around checking in with your sensitivity and some accountability, very loosely. I don't really like the term.
That's the wrong word, but I suppose
you know what I mean.
In a way, but
but just having something that's consistent.
Yeah, that stops the overwhelms from happening. I know I need to manage them, but if I'm not processing any of my highly sensitive nature because I'm just forging on through all the time, I need to remind myself I'm highly sensitive. And just even if I was just paying to be part of a community that popped up on my WhatsApp now and again, it would remind me I'm highly sensitive too.
So true. And as I said before, other people sharing, even if they're blurting out their, this happened today but what I'm thinking is this, has anyone got any ideas, might remind you in that moment to go, oh, that happened to me last week and I didn't even think that I could do something about it. Yeah. Brilliant. Cool. Lucy.
For me, really, in a very unusual life situation, it's like been an absolute lifeline knowing that the call was coming. Over the last couple of days, like a hell of a lot has taken place in my life, and knowing that I was going to have a space to be heard and seen and allow my extremities to come was like, I've got that call. It's in my diary, my old-fashioned paper diary.
Love it. So it feels quite grounding to have regular check-ins. So as well as some kind of group where there's consistent checking in, it's also helpful to have somewhere to kind of land on a regular basis that we know that there's support coming up.
Yeah, like for me, it's been so valuable. And I think what I've noticed from the call, then to add on to that, it would have been useful for me to have the journaling prompts beforehand. And so I could have done a little bit, and then, even though you gave time, there would have been more time, and then I could have kind of gone back and forth over the question.
I hear you. Absolutely. And I guess you've already thought this in your own mind, but extending the invitation to, after the call, sit for a while longer if you can and dig into it, or go back to it maybe tomorrow when you've had time to process a bit more. I'm really aware of the time. If anybody does need to go or wants to go because you need the loo or you just are done, that's fine. Please do leave. You're more than welcome to. Rupal, you look like you want to say something. Is that right, or is that from earlier?
No, I was just going to say, just further to that about reminding yourself that you're sensitive, and that rather than waiting for the point of burnout and then realizing, and it building up, is one of the observations I've done is trying to notice it more in my body, which I'm still learning how to do that.
Yeah.
But I think, like other people, I'd probably benefit from through the group or WhatsApp group, whatever it was, of almost, you know, even if it's a few times a week or once a week, just having a prompt to check in with the body to kind of
Yeah.
release tension in whatever way an individual finds useful before it builds up. Because I think when you're constantly dealing with stuff, and you're at the point where it's overwhelming, it's like you say, you then forget to do the things along the way to kind of release it bit by bit.
Yeah.
So yes, that was
Yeah.
just it.
That's really helpful. And that's exactly, it's like you read my mind. It's one of the things I was thinking was if we've got some kind of group format, whether it's WhatsApp or Circle or one, you know, one of the apps, having like a Monday prompt and a Friday prompt, an invitation to think about, or a, you know, a midweek check-in or whatever it is, just prompts on a regular basis. Cool. Thank you so much. Sam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking that if there was some sort of WhatsApp group that might then lead to, if we were then to have some sort of check-in like this Zoom meeting, things to discuss that have come up that you've then noticed that actually there's something that all of us are kind of saying something similar. You need to give us a bit of extra help on that in this group format. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's often a theme, isn't there? There's often
Yeah.
something that's within the collective that's coming up that would be really helpful to,
Because I definitely like this journaling in a group and Zoom rather than going somewhere. I like the fact that I'm in my own home and it's easy. I'm not having, you know, only having to take an hour or whatever, and then I can still carry on with work. I'd probably be less inclined if it was a let's go and meet somewhere.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that comfort of your own home. Yeah, you can do it in between different things in the day. Yeah, thank you for that. That's really supportive. So I've taken up enough of your time today, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all your shares and your insights. If it's okay with you, would you, again, it's an invitation, there's no pressure to do this, but what would feel really supportive for me is if I put a few questions on email, just kind of gathering the things that we've discussed today, just to get even more clarity on how things might look or what you might like. Would that be okay with you? There would be no pressure, there's no kind of deadline to do it within, but if you don't mind just answering a few questions on what that might look like, cool, you're all nodding or thumbs upping, or oh, you're so kind and generous. Thank you, ladies. And please go and enjoy the sunshine today. I hope you have lovely weekends, and I'll speak to you all really soon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny.
Bye, RuPaul. Bye, Lucy. Bye, Julia.